What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. So today we are going to do a Battleworld book. Battleworld was a way for Marvel to do tie-ins to the Secret Wars event they had back in 2015. Because remember, when Doctor Doom became God Doom, he was able to make a new Earth, except he called this new Earth Battleworld. Now with this new Earth, what he did was he was able to make Battleworld off the fragments of different universes from the multiverse. Now, on top of that, it was also a way for Marvel to kind of redo some of their famous storylines about their characters they have done over the years. For example, Civil War was redone, so was Planet Hulk. A lot of stories were done all over again as a way for Marvel to make more money. Now, all of the books were like that because this one is all about Ghost Rider, or really all of the Ghost Riders. So with this book, it was really a way for Marvel to have all of their Ghost Riders in one book, but to also have Robbie Reyes still the main one that Marvel was really trying to push at the time, because Marvel had a lot of Ghost Riders given to us over the years in Marvel Comics, but Robbie Reyes was the newest one, and Marvel was really hoping that with Robbie Reyes, they'll be able to sell a whole lot more Ghost Rider books. Now, this storyline actually does take place in the Kingdom of Doom, where the main Secret War storyline took place in, because the Ghost Riders are actually part of some kind of competition where they do different things in this arena to see who is the better Ghost Rider. Of course, this is all for the entertainment for the people of Doom Kingdom, but also this is being run by Arcade, who is usually an X-Men villain who is big on games and stuff. So yeah, we are going to do Battleworld Ghost Riders, where we have all the Ghost Riders teaming up in this storyline. And so when we jump into the first chapter of this storyline, we actually pick up with the Ghost Riders getting ready for a race in the arena to entertain the people of Doom Kingdom. Now, of course, we are focusing only on the 5 characters that fans have met and cared for over the years in Marvel Comics. So like Robbie Reyes, Danny Ketch, Johnny Blaze, Alejandra Blaze, and also Carter Slade. But the main one for this storyline is Robbie Reyes. But we see them right now getting ready for a race to prove who is going to win this time. So the first few pages, it is really more of us getting the chance to see these characters race one another and doing all of what they can to actually win this race. Now, each character does get their time to shine, but when it comes down to the wire, it is really down to Alejandra Blaze and also Robbie Reyes, where Alejandra Blaze is about to win, but she's shot out of nowhere, which of course lets Robbie Reyes win. So everyone in the crowd is happy because to a lot of people, he is the favorite Ghost Rider. Now, right after the race, we do see some interesting things happen. The first thing is that we come to find out there is some kind of computer system that is able to depower Ghost Riders. Now, that right there is very huge because usually when it comes to Ghost Riders, they have the ability to depower themselves. But right now, we are actually seeing the Ghost Riders being depowered by a computer system. Like they don't have a choice at all if they want to depower or not. Now, on top of that, right after Robbie Reyes gets out of his car, he is surrounded by a bunch of people who have a bunch of questions because he just won the race. But this is where things get more interesting because the Ghost Riders, the ones that had lost the race, they are being taken away. Now, of course, this is huge because the reason why they're being taken away is because they lost the race. But here is the big shocker. It's the way they're being taken away. Like they're basically prisoners. Like apparently if you lose, you do not deserve to be praised at all. Now, you do have one of the other Ghost Riders actually yell at Robbie Reyes to say that he is lucky because right now, Robbie Reyes is the favorite one. And with him being the favorite one, of course, he is going to win all of these different races because it makes arcade a lot of money. Because right now, the public really loves Robbie Reyes. But then we jump over to a random club. Now in this club, Robbie actually has a room to himself. And the reason why, because he wants to have some private time when he is basically hanging out with his little brother, Gabe. Now, Gabe is going to be very important for this storyline. So please do not forget him. Now, with that being said, you do have Robbie and Gabe hanging out, but that is the moment you have Gabe actually play a video. And that video is all of the highlights of the career of Robbie Reyes in the arena. Now, of course, this is really Marvel trying to tell us that when it comes to the Ghost Riders in this book right here, they're not just racing in the arena. They have different kinds of competition. But of course, Robbie Reyes is the one that always comes out on top. And that right there is huge because right now he is the most popular Ghost Rider in the Kingdom of Doom. And so, of course, we do see the two brothers just having fun. And honestly, I like this idea because it shows Robbie being a good brother, but also being a good big brother who's down to protect his little brother. But that is the moment we actually jump over to the rest of the Ghost Riders. Because remember what I said earlier, because they had lost the race to Robbie, they were being taken away like they're basically prisoners. And that is the moment we come to find out that with Arcade right now running the arena, what he does to the losers of the race, he has them tortured as a way to motivate them to try harder to win the next race. And so, of course, the other Ghost Riders are being tortured by an archangel known as Zakel. Now, Zakel apparently has the ability to control when the Ghost Riders power up and when they depower. And so earlier, when we saw the Ghost Riders depower, they were not being depowered by some random computer system. Instead, it was Zakel being able to depower these Ghost Riders. But you do have Arcade leave the room and telling Zakel to make sure to torture these guys even worse than ever to make them more motivated to actually win the next race. And that is the moment we actually pick up with the main point of this plot line. And what I mean is that we actually pick up with Arcade right now calling up one of his other assistants, where of course they're telling him the numbers of the last race, how great the numbers were and how much money Arcade made. But that is the moment you have Arcade realize that if he's able to make a bet that Robbie Reyes will lose the next race, he will make a bunch of money. Because how popular Reyes is right now, if he does lose, it would be huge right now in the arena. And so it's right now Arcade basically making a plan to make sure that Robbie Reyes loses the next race so that Arcade can make a bunch of money. Now that is the moment we actually jump into the second chapter. But when we do, we actually pick up with Robbie Reyes and Gabe right now at the club hanging out. Now this is the moment you actually have Gabe ask Robbie about what happens to a rider when they lose a competition. Because we know that if you lose, you basically get tortured. But this is the moment that you have the book kind of tell us that there was a time where Robbie was apparently also losing in competitions and he was also being tortured as well. But of course, Robbie does not tell Gabe the truth. You actually have Rob tell Gabe that everything Gabe has heard is just rumors and that is it. Now, of course, you do have Gabe apologize to Robbie. And the reason why Gabe is apologizing is because apparently the only reason why Robbie Reyes is a rider is because of Gabe. Now that is the moment we actually jump back in the past. And the reason why, because the book wants to tell us two different things. The first thing is, How did Robbie become a Ghost Rider? On top of that, why is Gabe apologizing to Robbie for? And so with that being said, we do jump back in the past where we actually pick up with Robbie and Gabe in their neighborhood just hanging out. Now, this is the moment that we can tell that Robbie realized that something is wrong with him or something is different about him. And the reason why, because right now in their area, it is 102 degrees, where of course you do have other people kind of freaking out because how hot it is. But of course, when it comes to Robbie, this temperature doesn't bother him at all. He is perfectly fine. And of course, that's our first hint that he knew that something was different about him. Now, that is the moment you do have a bunch of friends of Robbie and Gabe come by to say hi. But while the two brothers are hanging out with their friends, that is also the moment you do have some ladies walk by. And one of the ladies actually looks at Robbie, which of course he finds her attractive. And so he does go over to basically flirt with her. But while he is flirting with her, that is the moment you have Gabe actually mess with a fire hydrant. Now, this right here is going to lead into a lot of problems because as soon as Gabe is able to bust open the fire hydrant and a bunch of water goes everywhere and you have all these different kids just playing in the water, of course, with Gabe doing that, that is actually illegal, which means that, of course, some police force are going to come to arrest Gabe. And so that is the moment you do have a bunch of robots appear to arrest Gabe because what he did was illegal. Now, on top of that, you do have a Thor appear because remember, when it comes to Battleworld, in Battleworld, there is the Thor Corps. And the Thor Corps is kind of like the police force for God Doom. And so right now you have a Thor and a robot here to arrest Gabe because they know that Gabe was the one who basically bust open that fire hydrant. Now, with that being said, you actually do have Robbie step in to protect his brother. And you have Robbie tell the robot and also Thor that it was him, not Gabe, that bust open the fire hydrant. Now, this is huge because when the robot goes to scan Robbie, it can tell that Robbie is a Ghost Rider. And that right there is very unique and rare in Doom's world. And so with that, you have the robot actually grab Robbie to take him over to Arcade. And that is how Robbie got involved with the rest of the Ghost Riders. But later on that day, we do see Robbie being thrown into a prison cell with the rest of the Ghost Riders. Of course, like Danny Ketch, Johnny Blaze. But anyways, though, with him being thrown into that prison, that is the moment he is confronted by Arcade. Because remember, Arcade is the one that basically runs this arena. Now, with that being said, he is also confronted by the Archangel named Zakel. Because remember, Zakel has the ability to actually control when a Ghost Rider can activate their powers or not. Now, you do have Zakel tell Arcade that when it comes to Robbie, he is different from the rest of the riders. Apparently, his power source comes from somewhere else. And that right there is very huge. It can actually help Robbie down the road in this storyline. But either way, Robbie cannot believe that he was thrown into this prison. He cannot believe that he is actually a rider. But of course, he has no choice. He is stuck here with the rest of the riders to be entertainment for the people of Doom Kingdom. Now, later on that day, we actually do see Robbie right now getting into his first competition in the arena. Now, this is huge because when it comes to Robbie, he's freaking out. And the reason why he is freaking out is because this is his first time in the arena. On top of that, he has no idea how to fight, how to win, or how to survive. All of that right there is very important when it comes to the arena. Now, of course, when he does get into the car that was given to him by Arcade, that is the moment he is confronted by the spirit that's attached to his soul that makes him a ghost rider. And of course, that is the moment you do have the spirit named Eli tell him that right now they need to fight in the arena. They need to fight to survive, because right now Eli is going to try his best to figure out how to get him and Robbie out of this arena, to get them away from this place to be free once again. And so that is the moment you have Eli turn Robbie into a ghost rider for the first time. And that is the moment you actually have Robbie being thrown into his first competition. Now, with that being said, like I said earlier, Robbie has no idea how to survive, how to fight, or how to win. And so, of course, he does lose in his first competition. But with him losing, he is taken away by the guards. And of course, we know what happens when it comes to you losing in the arena. You are basically tortured, because the Arcade, for him, he believes that if you are tortured, it is a way to motivate you to actually try harder in the arena so that you can actually win, so that you can avoid being tortured like this down the road once again. And so right now you have Robbie just being tortured, just trying to survive. But of course, this session right here, it does motivate him to win so that he can avoid this kind of torture again down the road. Now, that is the moment we actually do jump back over to the present day, where we actually pick up with Robbie and Gabe right now at the bar. And of course, you do have Robbie telling Gabe that he does not need to apologize for anything at all, because it's not Gabe's fault what happened to Robbie, even though it is Gabe's fault for what had happened to Robbie in the first place. But either way, it's just Robbie being a good big brother. But right after that, you didn't have Gabe ask Robbie about their friends, because apparently their friends were also captured by the robot and the Thor at the same time Robbie was. But of course, Robbie has not seen his friends ever since that day. And so he has no idea what happened to his friends. Now, that is the moment we actually do jump back over to Arcade, because remember, right now, Arcade is trying to make some money. And so, of course, he's betting that Robbie is going to lose in the next competition. Now, this actually works out for Arcade, because he's the one in charge of the arena. And so with that, he'll be able to make sure that Robbie actually loses, because if Robbie does, he'll get a huge payout. Now, with that being said, you do have the Archangel Zakel remind Arcade one more time that when it comes to Robbie, Robbie's power source comes from somewhere else. And so with that, Zakel is having a hard time actually controlling Robbie. And you have Zakel telling Arcade that sooner or later, he will basically no longer be able to actually control Robbie down the road. And so getting into the next day, we do pick up in the arena, because it's time for the Ghost Riders to have another race. Now, let's not forget that Arcade is going to try his best to make sure that Robbie loses, because if Robbie does, Arcade is going to be paid. And so right then, as the race is going on, you actually do have Arcade try so many different things to make sure that Robbie loses in this competition. Now, one of the things Arcade does is actually sends out some kind of monster. Now, this monster is going to be very important. And the reason why, because that monster is the combination of all the friends we saw earlier that belonged to Robbie and Gabe. Yes, remember, Gabe said that when Robbie got taken away by the robot, so did their friends as well. But Robbie had no idea what happened to his friends. Well, now he knows, they were turned into some kind of monster. And so with that being said, they're right now being tasked to actually attack Robbie. Now, Robbie is able to get rid of them and move on. But of course, that is the moment he realized that Arcade is up to something. And so you have Eli, the spirit, being able to teleport Robbie and him out of the arena to finally get away from all this madness. And so, of course, with Robbie getting away from the arena, you do have Arcade just freaking out. Now, of course, you do have Arcade look over to Zykel. But again, Zykel has been telling Arcade this whole time that when it comes to his control over all of the different Ghost Riders, when it comes to Robbie, he's having a hard time actually controlling Robbie. And so with that being said, Robbie was able to get away because he was truly never under the control of Zykel. But either way, you do have Arcade tell Zykel that he needs to get out there and capture Robbie and bring him back here to the arena so that he can lose and so that Arcade can get his money. And so with that being said, you do actually have Zykel tell the rest of the Ghost Riders, Johnny Blaze, Danny Ketch, Alejandra Blaze, to go out there and actually capture Robbie Reyes. But getting into the third chapter of this storyline, we actually do pick up right now with Gabe watching the television. And the reason why, because he's watching his brother at the race. And he does see his brother just disappear. And you have Gabe wondering what in the world had just happened to Robbie. Where did he go to? Now, that is the moment we actually do jump over to Robbie Reyes as he teleports somewhere in the middle of the city that surrounds the arena. Now, right after he does crash land, you do have Robbie pull over to catch his breath, but begin the process of actually asking Eli some questions, starting off with the idea on how in the world was him and Eli able to escape the arena. And that is the moment you actually have Eli tell Robbie that when it comes to Eli, he's a different kind of spirit. And with him being a different kind of spirit, he was not being controlled by Zykel, the Archangel, which means that they were able to break away because Zykel does not have control over Eli, the spirit. Now, then you have Robbie realize that when it comes to Arcade, Arcade is going to be very upset with the idea that Robbie and Eli got away. And so he knows that Arcade is going to send out a bunch of police force to come look for them. And the problem is, though, Eli the spirit is right now the car. Well, Eli looks very, very interesting as a car. And so, of course, that means they stick out like a sore thumb. And so then you have Eli change his appearance to look like a car that looks like a car you would see in this town, so that they'll be able to actually hide from the police force that Arcade is most likely going to send out. And so you do have Robbie and Eli drive around the town, but as they're driving around, that is the moment they do get confronted by the other Ghost Riders, because they can detect Robbie and they knew he was right there. And so now we're going to have Robbie fighting against the rest of the Ghost Riders. And so, of course, we do get that battle between Robbie Reyes and the other Ghost Riders. Now, this battle actually does last for a few pages. But with that being said, though, it is more of Robbie Reyes actually fighting against all the different Ghost Riders that we have seen over the years in Marvel Comics. And you would think that he would lose this battle so easily because there's so many of them and only one of him. But of course, he's able to actually hold his own against all of these other Ghost Riders. But again, this is Robbie not trying to fight against them, but more trying to defend himself against them, to hopefully have them realize that what they're doing right now is completely wrong. But that is the moment you actually have Robbie do something very important. he was able to do something to Carter Slade. Now remember, Carter Slade was actually the first Ghost Rider that Marvel had ever made in the Marvel timeline. He came way before Johnny Blaze. But with that being said though, Robbie was able to do something to Carter. And of course, it makes Carter stop right in his tracks. And then you have Carter actually turn around and begin the process of actually attacking the other Ghost Riders to help out Robbie. And that is the moment you have all the Ghost Riders, including Robbie, just depower. And you have Carter tell the other Ghost Riders except Robbie that when it comes to Robbie, he's someone they can trust. He is actually a good person. He is completely pure. Yes, he is a different Ghost Rider, but he still is a Rider, and he is a darn good one. And that is the moment you have the rest of the Ghost Riders realize that they were being controlled by Zykel. On top of that, they begin the process of actually remembering everything about their past lives. And that right there is very important because now there is a possibility that they can fight against the control of Zykel and to hopefully get rid of him. But either way, that is the moment you do have the other riders tell Robbie to go ahead and leave before they're taken back over by Zykel and continuing to attack him once again. Now, you do have Zykel actually recall all of the Ghost Riders back to him. And the reason why, because he wants to torture them because they did break free of his control. But on top of that, they let Robbie Reyes go. Now, of course, when they do get back, you do have Zykel begin the process of actually torturing the other Ghost Riders. Now, of course, Zykel feels very bad because he was unable to catch Robbie for Arcade. But that is the moment you have Arcade tell us that he does have one more plan up his sleeve that can help him to recapture Robbie Reyes. But when Robbie gets back home to his apartment, of course, he begins the process of actually looking for Gabe. But that is the moment you have Robbie realize that Gabe is not in his room. But when he looks on the television, he does see that Gabe is right now is at the arena. And matter of fact, Gabe is right in the middle of the next Ghost Rider competition. Because to Arcade, he knows two things. One, Gabe has the possibility of becoming another Ghost Rider, and two, he knows that with Gabe here in the arena, Robbie is going to try to save his little brother. And so when we jump into the final chapter of this storyline, we actually do pick up right now with the rest of the Ghost Riders once again under the control of Zykel going after Gabe. Now, of course, Gabe does have some kind of vehicle as a way to drive away from the other riders. But of course, Gabe is new to all of this. And so sooner or later, these other riders are going to be able to catch up to Gabe and possibly kill him. Because right now, they are still under Zykel's control. But that is the moment you do have Robbie appear to save his little brother. Now, of course, it does lead into another battle where you have Robbie fighting against the other Ghost Riders, except this time this battle actually doesn't last that long. And the reason why it doesn't last that long because you actually have Robbie doing the same thing he did earlier, being able to break the other Ghost Riders free of the control of Zykel. And when he does that, of course that means they're on his side now, and now all of the Ghost Riders are going to begin the process of actually going after Arcade instead of coming after Robbie and Gabe. But then you have Zykel actually get very upset with the idea that now he has lost control of all of the Ghost Riders. And so with that being said, you actually have Zykel come down and grab Gabe and try to fly away and use Gabe as a hostage. Now, this could possibly work with any other kind of heroes except the Ghost Riders, especially Robbie, because remember, we saw earlier that Eli, the spirit that makes Robbie a Ghost Rider, gave him the ability to teleport, and that is the moment you actually have Robbie teleport and change spots with Gabe. And so Zykel is no longer holding on to Gabe, he's now holding on to Robbie instead. Which of course does lead into Robbie being able to kill off Zykel. And so there goes one of the two people who basically need to die in this storyline to the Ghost Riders. And then you have the rest of the Ghost Riders actually go after Arcade himself, where of course you do have the Ghost Riders basically kill off Arcade. Like at first they do take his eyes, and it does seem like that maybe they are going to leave him alive, but of course leave him blind. But that is the moment you do have all of the Ghost Riders just run over him to kill him. And so that is the death of Arcade as well. But this is where the story actually ends, where you actually have the Ghost Riders finally free, and they're able to live a free life now. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.